Hi, this is Carissa. I decided to do a video for my second graduate assignment for Special Education 503. I chose to do a video because I feel like I learned so much information interviewing and working with the transition specialist for a day that I just didn't have enough to cram it all into a paper that would be of a length that you would want to read. So, here we go. I got to spend a day with our transition specialist in Wallowa County. Her name is Sarah Lynn Johnson. She gave me permission to use her name. And she has quite a job in our county because she's the only transition specialist. So she covers the Wallowa School District in Wallowa, the Enterprise School District in Enterprise, and the Joseph School District in Joseph. And then she also handles if there's any kids down in the Emnaha area and the Flora area. But usually there's only a few kids in those schools anyway, so when it comes time for transition, she doesn't spend a lot of time there. So she actually gave me lots of paperwork, was very informative, helpful with everything. The first thing we did was we worked with a high school senior who is looking to receive vocational rehabilitation funds for college. She did her senior project on going to beauty school, and she decided that's not what she wants to do. She wants to go to school and enter in the field of criminal justice and be a probation officer. So this was a new experience for me. I'm not very familiar with vocational rehab. She needed to fill out an application, which we assisted in her filling out. It asked for her name, all her basic information, what kind of diploma she was getting, how many people lived in her household, what she was wanting to pursue for a career. One thing I learned about vocational rehab and receiving funding for that for college is that it's only good for a 2-year community college or a vocational program. It's not valid to receive funds for a 4-year institution. So that was kind of interesting. I did not know that. I understand why they do that, but I don't know that I necessarily agree, because I would think that if you have an individual who wants to pursue that 4-year degree, let them. Maybe some kids, because financially they can't afford it, they decide to hold themselves back a little bit. I don't know, just my opinion. So we helped her fill out this form, and then another requirement of the vocational rehab for her to receive that funding was to interview. She has to research about the job, so she has to go online and find several different documents, informational articles about being a probation officer, and has to report on that. She also has to interview 3 different individuals within that field. Now for this student, we only have 2 probation officers in Wallowa County, so she's going to have to resource out to find another probation officer, which I think is a good thing to do, because job descriptions from small town Wallowa County to a big city are a lot different. I just happen to know someone who works pretty high up within the law enforcement system in the Boise, Idaho area, so I gave her contact information to speak with that woman and kind of get an idea of what it would be like in a bigger city. So we spent about an hour and a half working on this application process with this student and talking with her about what her dreams, what she wanted to do were. She has an older sister who is attending the same community college that she's going to go to, so she has a place to live, which took away a little bit of some cost there in figuring that out. Her sister, I learned that mom is really kind of the one pushing for her to apply for vocational rehab funds, because her sister was also an individual with disabilities through our school, and she was able to receive the funds, but her sister's disability was a little bit worse um, than hers. So our transition specialist said, I don't know for sure. I don't know that she's going to get the funding. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. So for right now, this student is working on getting all this information together for the vocational rehab program. And the beginning of summer, she will have her meeting to see if she qualifies or not. So kind of interesting to learn more about the vocational rehab program. I didn't really know a whole lot about it before, but being that I've worked in our school district for a couple of years, Sarah Lynn was able to share with me some different things that she's done with students in the past that I knew. And so one example, and I know I've kind of wrote about these boys a little bit. We have a couple boys who have severe needs in our town, and they both were in the school. And the one is all about getting out there and doing things, and the other one is, I just want to get out of high school and I want to sit on my butt at home and play video games all day. Well, the one who wants to get out and do things, it's kind of difficult because we don't have a lot of stuff in our area for him to do. You know, a lot of businesses here are run by families. They don't hire out, stuff like that. So what Sarah Lynn was able to do, with help from the vocational rehabilitation program, was to create a position for this young man in our school. So he helps our maintenance man in the school. He comes in every day and he has a list of chores that he's supposed to do. So he's out in the mornings sweeping up the gravel back into the playground area. He takes out garbages. He cleans up trash around the school. He's there for an hour and a half, 2 hours every morning during the school week, and we have 4-day school weeks, so Monday through Thursday. He absolutely loves it. Now, Sarah Lynn did not get all the funding from vocational rehab, so she did have to reach out to the community members to donate, and a bunch of us just threw in 20, 25, 30 bucks, and he has a secure job for the school year. So now he's going to have to go back and apply again through vocational rehab to get some money for next year if he wants to continue doing this maintenance position, which I hope he does, because I can tell that he has been doing wonderful. He loves it. He doesn't want to be anywhere else. So vocational rehab is really cool. It's still something that I feel like I need to research about a little bit more. After we were done with this student, helping her fill out this application for vocational rehab, Sarah Lynn and I had a few hours to just spin to ourselves and kind of talk. And the one thing that I learned about her position, which she gave me, she gave me a lot of printouts. So this is actually a copy of her job description through the Wallowa County ESD. So our Education Service District hires out, and they hire Sarah Lynn, and then she is required to work in all 3, 4, 5, if you want to count Imnaha and Flora school districts. And she's not just, her job just entails so much more. So I just want to read a little bit of this description. She's responsible for developing and implementing secondary special education students' IEP, vocational transition goals and objectives, in addition to post-high school goals, in cooperation with the local high school special education teacher. She also assists the district's special education director with annual and 3-year special education eligibility assessments, and is responsible for completing formal and informal annual vocational and or functional capacity assessments for all students being served on IEPs from the age 16 through 21. So she works with Oregon's Youth Transition Program, she works with vocational rehab, and she also works in all of the schools. This woman is busy. I don't even know how else to say it. She's so busy. She's never been married. She doesn't have kids. She does, and I don't know if that's because of her job, but I think it's a huge part of it. That's great for her, but I also know that she also takes on a lot more than just this. She's very, very, very knowledgeable. She's probably about in her 50s. She actually used to teach in Wallowa agriculture. So we spend a lot of time with her because my husband is now the agriculture teacher in Wallowa and has brought back the FFA program. She started up the Wallowa FFA alumni. She's involved in that, plus everything else with her job. Her family owns a ranch. Her mother is very elderly and is sick. I have said to her several times, I don't even know how you sleep. She is so busy. Because our district is so small, our education service district, she has to take on all these extra duties, which is understandable, but I feel like it's really a lot. So I have this nice little sheet, goes over all of her primary responsibilities. She's responsible for a lot, and the one thing I didn't realize that she did was that she was assisting with that testing every year, which does take a load off of our special ed advisor up there in the ESD as well. So she also gave me a flyer thing on youth transition services and everything that it covers, and that was a lot that I didn't know about either. So a lot of job readiness skills, career assistance, job coaching, plus everything with the IEPs, working with the parents, and that stuff. So there's a whole list there. And then the other thing that she talked about through the youth transition program is she gave me some printouts of how she, and vocational rehab both, how she puts the students into the system, and then everything that she's required to do with those students in the system. So she checks in annually on them and reports their progress on where they are in reaching college, and then when they get to college, what they're doing. So even though these students graduate and leave and go off to college or go into the workforce, she still has to catch up with them for 1 to 2 years afterwards, that's a lot of kids to catch up on, even in such a small district. You're talking, you have 2 years outside of college plus 4 years, freshman to senior, in school for 3, technically 5 different schools, on top of meetings, writing transition plans, providing transition services. It's crazy. It blows my mind, and maybe it just seems like a lot to me because I'm not there. Sometimes things sound worse than they really are until you get in the position. But I just thought, wow, this is absolutely insane. And it's good, and I understand that we need those statistics for the state of Oregon, but it just seems like it's a lot of work. So she did give me a form that talked about state of Oregon and the statistics that we have within the state. So this just kind of gives percentages for the different types of disabilities compared from our county through to the state. So kids who are SLD, we have 9 students who are identified as SLD in our county. There are 599 in the state. Stuff like that. And that's for primary disability, and then it also goes into secondary disability. So there's quite a few kids who have a secondary disability on top of their primary. And then there's also a really cool section that talks about the barriers and whatnot. So, if someone's in poverty, or if there's transportation, no work history, stuff like that in the family, that's on here. And and for the students, if they're living in these conditions. So the one that I was really happy to see is the pregnancy. We don't have any students in our county who are in the transition process right now who are pregnant, which I think is good because teenage pregnancy rates are through the roof right now. So that's good. No homelessness in our county. No history of substance abuse in our county, stuff like that. Now, compared to the state, there is, and I think one of the biggest things on here is the transportation and the lack of it within the state. So just kind of an eye-opening thing to see how we compare as a county to the rest of the state. Okay, so like I said, Sarah Lynn was really good about giving me a lot of flyers and handouts. So I have a couple flyers on transition services and what they mean and what they are to do, you know, what they do, as well as the course of study. So how the students are going to reach their goals, and when by grade level. And then their preferences, interests, needs, and strengths was also another flyer she gave me. So talking, you know, trying to get them to figure out employment, what they want to do in their future, if they want to go to school, if they want to enter a vocational rehab program, things like that. Some really cool handouts that Sarah Lynn gave me were about accommodations, and there's one for college accommodations and there's one for job site accommodations, which is really important. And one thing we've been talking a lot about in another course is job accommodations and whether just why employers aren't hiring, if they do hire, the type of accommodations they have to provide, and that scares a lot of people. I think they think first off, an individual with disabilities is going to be, it's going to be an obvious disability, and they think, how is this individual going to do this? They don't realize that all disabilities are not going to impair the work ability of the individual. So providing these accommodations to the students and then also the employers would be a good thing, because they would see something so little that could help somebody in the workforce, like you know, having books on tape for instructional manuals of how to do things at work, or having talking calculators or spell checkers, or just, you know, larger keyboards on the computers, stuff like that, stuff that's not that scary to think about or that invasive to install in a business or to provide. Yeah, it may cost a little bit, but it's a one-time cost for that provider, because then they can continue to hire individuals with disabilities. So really great worksheet here. Same with college. I think college seems so intimidating for students, especially ones that have disabilities, that they almost don't want to advocate for themselves, which is why we talk so much about self-determination in this course. But college accommodations definitely, you know, same thing. Having textbooks on tape, having note takers in class if you need to, taking a test in a different location, having both visual and verbal instruction when there's a lecture, making sure that the professor knows that you need these things. So these worksheets are just great for students to say, hey, this is what I can receive in these locations. These are things I need to share. These are things that I need to be aware about. So those are things that Sarah Lynn will hand out to those students with disabilities. She was also really helpful with giving me some forms. One that I really liked is called the Educational Evaluation Report Review and Functional Limitation Statement for Employment. And so this is something that a student can fill out, and they can mark if they have communication needs, if they have mobility needs, interpersonal needs, stuff like that. They can make copies and they can give them to the employer. So maybe they aren't very good at expressing the types of areas that they have struggles in. This is something that they can hand to them. So for example, they could mark under communication, they talk and interrupt excessively. And so maybe the employer would know, hey, you know, maybe we should work with them on this, teach them the proper protocol at the checkout stand to make sure that they listen to the customers, not interrupt, stuff like that. So I think this is a good way for students to privately express what they struggle with at times, and then can quietly hand it to an interviewer or a business without having to be embarrassed and verbally express that themselves, because not everybody is comfortable or self-determined enough to just say, hey, this is my problem. So great form for the students to use. There's also a checklist for the parents that she gave me, and it's about 3 pages, and it's one that the parents can use at home to make sure that their student is on track to graduate and to reach those transition goals and services. So it starts with freshman year, has a section for 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, 12th, basically just to make sure that parents are encouraging their students to do well, are making sure that they're getting things done on time. So as you get into your senior year, it talks about making sure that you are working on taking SATs, ACTs, getting financial aid, finding out where you want to go to college, getting college applications in, and just give parents guidance and support to help their student get through to receive these transition services and to be successful, because it is such a huge program. Lastly, the couple of things that Sarah Lynn gave me were a couple of resource books, and they're particular for the state of Oregon, but I'm sure that there are some in Washington and all different states. But one of the things they go through, and they give you resources and contact information for tons of different areas. So vocational rehab, medical support, residential services, transportation, stuff like that. And one thing that I really liked about it, I just opened to a section under vocational and educational services on financing your education, and so it kind of gives you a step-by-step process of what you need to do, how to apply for financial aid, and then it gives you a timeline. So it's a 2-column paragraph. Here, I'll show. I don't know if you can see it here or not. It's a 2-column paragraph, and it says step and then timeline. So it tells you what your first step is and when you need to have that first step done by, which I think is helpful not just for individuals with disabilities, but for everybody, because college is crazy. There's tons of deadlines. It's expensive. It's fantastic to have these resources for these students. The other, this one was specifically for after you go to after high school and you continue on into the workforce or to college. And the other one is transition planning. So it's not as big, but it's one that has just more contact information, advocacy, and support. It does have a little bit of some other information, but it just kind of talks about, like this page talks about county developmental disabilities program, sheltered employment. It's not as geared towards specifically getting those kids into, a step-by-step process of how they need to do this, how they need to do this, how they need to do this. So this is kind of a more informational resource piece that is very, very, very helpful. So my personal experiences with Sarah Lynn in the school have been when I have been at meetings for high school students. I do teach an hour a day in the high school with yearbook. So I work with kids all ages K through 12. And it's just really interesting to see how many opportunities there are for students out there through the transition programs and vocational rehab. So, for example, we have a student who is coming into her senior year next year, or the state of Oregon requires a senior project where they go and spend time job shadowing. So this individual is going to job shadow at a local veterinarian's office. So veterinary medicine is something she's really interested in, and so not only is it going to give her um, insight as to what the job pertains if she were to be a vet tech or a veterinary assistant, but it's also something that if she decides not to go to school, it's kind of opening a pathway for her to possibly work a few hours a day during the week in this office, answering phones, and stuff like that. So, lots of opportunities for kids. Sarah Lynn's position sounds absolutely crazy to me. I feel like she just drives all over the county and never sleeps. But she's doing wonderful, wonderful things for these kids. She has fantastic ideas on goals, services. She has so many connections within our area because she has been here for so long. It's not even funny. She's taking time on her own to do provide different services for students. She, in particular, going back to those boys that I mentioned earlier, the one who's in our school working during the days, in the mornings, when him and his brother when they were both out of school, he decided, nope, I want to go and live in Enterprise. We're going to get an apartment together. We're going to live on our own, which I thought was fantastic for these boys. They're receiving Social Security income. It's low-income housing. They'll have lots of support. Well, their representative, through the brokerage, unfortunately did a very poor job of helping them to settle in. They moved into the apartment that day, took them to the grocery store, let them shop, get groceries, but didn't supervise what they were buying. So that night, Sarah Lynn had a frantic phone call at 9 o'clock from the one boy because their brokerage representative didn't truly help them. She took them shopping for food, but did not make sure that their cabinets were stocked with plates and silverware. She took them shopping for food, but did not help them put together meals. So they had boxes of cereal, but no milk. They were freaking out because they didn't know how to live on their own. There was no list of phone numbers for them if they needed assistance with anything, but they happened to have Sarah Lynn's number because they worked so closely with her. So Sarah Lynn, 9 o'clock at night, got them a pizza, said, here you go. The next day she drove them out to La Grande, which is about an hour away, and she used her own funds to purchase them silverware, plates, cups, took them grocery shopping again, made sure that they had everything put together for meals so that they could eat. She's fantastic. I don't know what else to say about her. Her heart is in it completely for these kids. And she fortunately has the time to do it because she doesn't have a family. I can only hope that if I were to ever jump into that position, that I would be able to do just as good of a job as she is, because I know she just kind of runs all over the county. So this experience was really good for me to learn more about our transition program and everything that Sarah Lynn does within our transition program. It's not something I'm afraid of taking on later if that position does open up and become available. I think it would be great to see these kids leave school and go to college and succeed, enter the workforce and succeed, helping them to get there and do that, teaching them to be self-determined. Everything that we have learned from this class would be beneficial to doing that. So thank you for making this suggestion to me. I had a wonderful time with Sarah Lynn learning about her position, and yeah, thanks.